First item, make a motion to call the meeting to order. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Would you like to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Did you print the agenda, Dorothea, or not?
It's the one from last night.
That's fine. I just want to
There's
not forget any
Couple
extra items before we begin the zoning discussion. Any conflicts of interest that anyone would like to disclose? Sounds like a no. Okay.
Nothing to discuss.
I don't have anything either. We have a press release from Hodgson Russ regarding the resolution we approved last night. I would like to vote for authorization to post that on the village website.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, so,
All in favor?
Where is it?
Did you print it, Dorothea?
I didn't print it. I thought
Oh,
it was
did you print
emailed to. Yes.
Just one.
When was it mailed yesterday?
I received it yesterday afternoon and I emailed it to Dorothea.
Okay, so none of us have seen it?
I've seen it.
You've seen
I think you sent it to everybody.
it? I don't think so. I definitely did not get it.
Well, we have Dorothea print it. It reflects the resolution that was printed approved last week.
The resolution or the press release?
The press release reflects the resolution that we approved at last week's meeting.
Was it email? Was it not?
Who needs a copy? Just Dan?
I just gave
Dan, if you want us to read it.
one copy, Frank.
Could you forward
Dan
that
didn't
to
have
me?
it, so
Just-
that's why you got to print it for Dan.
Do you need a copy?
Well, I'd like a copy, but I've already read it, so I know what's in there. But if you want to print a few more copies out, Dorothea, for everybody?
I'm sorry, that was my fault, Dorothea. I only asked for one.
Can I use your pencil?
Yes.
discussion? Comments? Okay. If there are none, I would ask for a vote.
Roll call or?
Trustee Lampier,
Aye.
Mayor Corby,
Aye.
Trustee Galusha,
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Abstain.
Oh, this is all right.
Abstain.
Will we have the reasons for your abstention, please?
I was not given enough time to review it.
Okay.
Can we talk about the process? So Lily, did you receive a copy of this? By email?
No, but I was aware of it.
Okay. Frank, did you receive a copy by email?
I did.
Okay. How are you sent one and Lily and I were not?
I sent a copy to Dorothea. I assumed that it would go out with an agenda, and I didn't. It came late yesterday afternoon, and so it really, the only reason Dorothea got it is because she was staying late with work because she's swamped. So it came in late. It's timely. I think just like recent things we've considered, I think if the issue is timely, it's important to get it on our agenda and move it along.
Yes, and it's also important to send it to the entire board of trustees.
Well, there was no intent not to send it to the entire board, Dan.
Okay.
I send it to the clerk, and the clerk normally sends everything out with an agenda. I know there's been a couple additions to this agenda, so, but there was no attempt. Obviously, we share everything with everybody.
Okay.
All right. Next item. Did you want to do budget transfers?
Yes.
Dorothea? Okay.
Mary sent out today a list of budget transfers she needs to have completed tonight. Any questions regarding the info that was sent out earlier?
Let me just open it up.
These are necessary to occur before August 1st, is that correct?
Yes, they have to be done so the final paperwork, everything can be completed for year end.
I had none. I met with Mary earlier today, and she shared in detail what's being proposed.
And I've gone over these, and I did call Mary, and I went over them with her.
Anything stand out?
No, nothing but the usual, the litigation expenses and general legal fees.
And this is in fiscal 20.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the transfers approved by the treasurer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If there are none, I'll ask for a vote.
Aye.
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 Abstain. I didn't have enough time to review it. I trust you guys, but.
Question, Dan, have you reviewed the legal bills yet? Are we ready? Because we just got another batch of bills in today.
I talked to Mary today about that, and she wants me to review May and June now, so it's not yet complete. I'm hoping, so our next meeting is Thursday. I'm
Mhm.
hoping by then that it's done. If not, then I think our next meeting is not till the week after.
The
So I'm really
27th.
gonna try and press. I've done some work on it. It's not yet complete. I'm targeting Thursday.
Thank you.
Did you have any questions for me?
That's what I haven't done yet. I've got some questions for you, and I have some questions for Bill McBride.
Okay.
So I'm gonna need a little bit of your time, probably tomorrow or Thursday.
Okay, I have one other addition.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
In conformity with the audit report that was done a few years ago, Mary needs something in her file from you, Dan, saying that you've gone through the bills and
Kind of do it in writing.
they're okay to pay.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
I've already looked through the planning board's attorneys and sent a comment to Mary that things look reasonable to me.
I just wanted to report on, earlier this afternoon, Bill McBride had been reviewing the emails. When we sent out the village survey, we asked for a solicitation for anyone that was interested on the board. He's been reviewing the candidates to look for people that are qualified. One candidate rose to the top. We interviewed that person today. Bill's recommendation is that I appoint him. His name is Nano Ando. Nano is a graduate of the Notre Dame School of Architecture. It's an outstanding architecture program. It also is somewhat unique is that it has an emphasis on historic preservation, and they still teach classicism. So for somebody, an architect that would consider serving on a preservation board, those are great qualifications. Nano has practiced in New York City and New Jersey. He's currently a professor at the RIT School of Architecture, and we were both very impressed with him. He has not yet submitted a resume. He's actually going to be out of town later this month, but I would make state my intent to appoint subsequent to receipt of his resume, which he said he would submit sometime this week for all requirements.
Small correction, his name is pronounced Nana.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you,
no.
Dan. You are correct, Dan. You're right. It is not no. Thank you.
I have a question about his judgment, because he was at the APRB meeting last night. He's still interviewed?
What's that? Yeah. He did. In fact, we talked quite a bit about the solar issue, and
What's it?
I think it's really interesting because in addition to his obvious design understanding, he actually has a technical understanding too, and I think he'd be a great addition
We
to the
need
board.
that. We
Yeah.
need this.
Yeah, very good candidate. Okay. Any other items from the clerk?
I got nothing.
Then let's move on to zoning.
Well, I apologize, but I spent a lot of time over the weekend reading front to back cover. And those are my memos resulted from it. Most of them are, did I preempt? Or were you heading somewhere else?
No.
A lot of it, where I haven't circled a bullet, I think is just cleaning up language. Obviously, I would like you to all review all of it, but I think I need trustee, and Molly needs trustee input on the items that I've circled.
Okay, so should we start with part one, the circled items?
Seems reasonable.
These are the 4 things you sent over today?
Yeah,
Okay.
and again, I apologize, but it took me a long time to
Okay,
get
well,
through this stuff.
actually, we had already gone through part two of the memo. We've done that. See, it's all worked out.
Yeah, but you didn't get my new part 2 memo until today.
So we'll have to go through it.
Okay.
So,
Just so we're on agenda items, we also have a bunch of input from the planning board that we'd like to look at as well. So is the intent, the questions for the board, is the intent to get through this stuff with Jeff and then go over to the planning board comments, or is it to go through kind of both at the same time?
I'm not gonna tell the board what to do or how to do it, but I've looked at the planning board comments, and I think that they are, I guess I would just say they're not substantive. I mean, I think they look like they're, have you thought about this, have you thought about that, might you tweak it this way, might you tweak it that way? I would think that we would take those comments in as part of the LWC seeker process and shoot to incorporate them at the end of the road, or as we get towards the end of the road. But I think it's important that, and I'm not telling you how to handle this, but I think those kind of comments, just like, you know, the smaller comments of mine really wouldn't have to go in. But they could be, I don't think they have to be handled before we ship it out under the LWC review. Am I not making myself clear?
No, you are.
Okay, so I think, because I assume we're gonna get more of those. And as they work their way through the 4 parts of the code, I think we will have an opportunity to clean everything up before we set it out for publication in September. So I would think that we would be shooting for a finished product incorporating those kind of changes at the end of the road. But that, I'm not telling you to do that.
so what, I don't want to call it a recommendation, but what you're saying is that what we need to concentrate on is what we need to get done in order to move it on to the next step. And not necessarily what can happen later. What we need to do is concentrate on what must happen at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, what must happen by Thursday is we have to ship CAF for each of the comp plan and the code changes, along with part 1 of the seeker, along with to the planning board, and then the seeker stuff to all involved and interested agencies, and the county planning stuff to county planning. So,
So that's what we need to concentrate on.
right, and that could or could not include what the planning board sent you from their meeting last night, but I assume, and Justin sitting here, we could ask him that, I assume this is, that as you go forward, there are gonna be these kind of comments after each of their review sessions, which could then be dealt with in the final product.
And yes, it's not required that would happen at this point in order to move it along to the next step.
I don't think,
Can I make a comment about the proposed process?
I'm fine with it.
I would request, what I think makes sense for a process is, and what I would like is for the trustees to give the planning board time to get through all these sections and fully be able to make recommendations for policy before we get into the formal referrals and the formal adoption phase, so that all the stuff can get incorporated in. The formal referrals is going to kick in deadlines that frankly the planning board can't comply with. And we need to get through this and read it first and have a solid draft before we start and make some general recommendations before we start the adoption phase. We can't give you guys feedback on seeker 30 days from Thursday. We just can't do it.
well, I'm not the planners, but I know the schedule. And I don't mean to make light of your comments, and I'm not making light. But that proposal would be impossible in terms of meeting the adoption commitment prior to the expiration of the moratorium. I mean, that's just the way it is.
So what's the remedy, Jeff?
I think the best we can do is get our product the way we want it, ship it out, and let everybody go to work on it, and when we get to the other end, and not when we get to the other end, but I think as we go, we'll keep working on the changes that are recommended to us, so we can have a finished product to send to publication for adoption.
I think we have to see what the changes are that you're recommending to see what sort of timeline we need to do that. But I think the process, the way it's laid out now, anticipates that there will be changes all the way to the time of adoption, and that's what's supposed to happen because, not only your comments, but the comments from the public, the comments that come back on the seeker process, all are supposed to inform the final product.
I don't know if county planning will look at it, but they should. I mean, this is a pretty substantive piece of work, but I doubt they will. I mean, they don't have the manpower to do it.
I think the most meaningful input we're gonna get is from the planning board.
Well, I do too.
And I think, the board is committed to reviewing everything that you recommend and trying to do our best to incorporate it.
Yes, but it just is not gonna happen tonight.
Well, and the other thing, if we don't get this launched on Thursday, then we're really gonna have a hard time running up against our deadline, which has very, very little wiggle room in it.
Can I ask a question about your formal process? And you're going to go through seeker on this in a formal
Yeah,
way?
I can outline what I'm expecting to do for the process for the planning board.
Let me just ask the question first.
Yeah.
Are they able to do their process with a draft that we know will get changed?
As long as,
Because we won't have incorporated all of their input.
as long as the changes that we make at the other end of the road are not gonna be substantively impactful on the issues they're looking at in the LWC process.
So you're changing things from 30 days to 45 days or something like that. That's not substantive.
Or you're going 9 units, 8, 10 units to 11 units, or you're
Right.
going, that kind of stuff is not substantive.
Yeah.
I don't view it that way.
Okay.
So I know that Justin doesn't think this is a good way to go, and it may not be, but we're kind of stuck with the time frame that we've got. And I think if we commit to them that we're gonna look seriously at their changes as they come in from meeting to meeting, then I think we're doing the best we can with the time constraints that we have to meet.
I think what also might be helpful, Justin, is as you complete a section of recommendations, we'll have to schedule additional meetings to review those and incorporate them. But then instead of getting it all at once,
Right.
if we could move it, it'll help us get us done on a reasonable schedule.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to be doing it. I said we could wait to the end, but I think, as you point out, that would be very,
I think the sooner we get them, the better, and we can tackle them, and it'll just it'll prevent having a balloon at the end that we can't deal with.
But you're creating a balloon at the beginning the planning board can't deal with, is the problem right now. So our process going through them is we're going through it, we're trying to make some policy recommendations as we're submitted. When you start looking for seeker stuff, what are the impacts on drainage and traffic and stuff like that, it's looking at it using a completely different lens. And frankly, I don't want to be forced to look at it through these multiple lenses all at once. I'd like to get through it first, make policy suggestions, give time for that to be updated, and then we'd like to look at some of the more technical things for seeker and give suggestions on that. But there just is not, we need to be given time, and we can't have 5 meetings a week to look at this.
all right, I am gonna put this before the board, and then the board can respond to it. I don't think the board has any intention of finishing seeker within 30 days. I think that the board is planning to do it at the end, that you're gonna take the LWC comments, and then you're gonna do seeker, and it's gonna be at the end of the road, that seeker gets done, at that public hearing, the first public hearing. Am I right about that?
Correct.
So
I mean, there's no way we can ever guarantee, until we get to the end, that we're gonna have a final draft, because the whole intent of the process is to have the ability to incorporate recommendations, public comments, changes from this board, so it's gonna be a moving target. We hope we have nailed down the most substantive issues so that you can, I don't think there's anything in these comments that is a huge, change in direction.
For my comment, my stuff, no.
Right, so I think we're getting down to the point where, at least in the changes that we're looking at tonight, are pretty minor.
There's at least one that I know of from your comments where you were questioning how legal something was. This came up last night. I don't know about the prior 2 meetings because I wasn't at them, but those are the kinds of things we'd want to flag.
I think my guess is there's probably a dozen or dozen and a half things that I noted that are conflicts with state law. And they're usually they're minor differences. But I think they're worth fixing.
Well, they all need to be vetted, and
It's not, none of them are controversial, it's not a big deal.
but we want to get it right. I mean, I think all of us are in agreement here. We want to, and we appreciate all the time that your board has spent on it, because you've gone above and beyond the duty of a typical planning board to really take a thorough look at it. And your board is the one that really works with us on a monthly basis, and we appreciate all the effort that you're putting in.
Well, trust me, we use this code, and when it's bad and unworkable, it causes me intense pain,
And that's
so we want it to be usable, workable, and
the whole reason for us taking this project on in the first place is because over your tenure as chair, we've heard your pain, and we know that there's contradictions and things that are not clear and not correct, and so we want to get it right. All of us want to get it right, whatever it takes. I think we're all committed to doing that. Yep. Okay. All right.
And I think those kind of changes, if they're in conflict with state law, those we can make as we go along during this process.
But I think, again, the more you can feed us what you've gotten to, the quicker we can get on it, get that part done, incorporated, and then move on to the next, so we can keep this process moving ahead.
And he has done that. So
Yes.
we have 3 sets of notes from them. So maybe when we're done with Jeff, we can take a quick scan through them and get the easy stuff into the master copy.
Yeah, and none of these things should be a big concern anymore.
We're planning on a longer meeting tonight, so
I can't stay much longer.
No, but I'm telling you, we're happy to stay here and take a look at the comments that you've already made, so we can work on those tonight. So, okay. All right.
Okay,
Great.
and can we make one last request, and then I'll be quiet?
Sure.
If you intend to leave a longer time period and time frame for the secret process, I would like some formal clarification of that. So if a secret notice is sent out, I think the planning board is going to send you written comments that we need more time to respond to this, and I would like a formal, communication back that says, we will, you know, the deadlines will be left open until at least this date. Just so that we don't run into, you know, we can only control what's before us, and we can't control what the trustees do. So I just want some formal clarification of the status so something doesn't change unexpectedly.
Yeah, that's perfectly
We
fine.
can do that.
Yeah.
Can you draft something, Jeff?
I mean, it's gonna be, I think there's a provision in secret that the timeframes can be extended by the parties in.
A mutual agreement, yes.
Extension,
Mhm.
okay.
I think we're all open to that, Justin. Okay?
That makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, that'd be fine. I mean,
Okay.
I can't see any reason to object to that.
Okay, page 20 of chapter 210.
So this is 210.
Are you working,
I'm talking about your
you're working through, you might, okay, so
Okay.
you're in your page,
So
you're
you're
in,
in section,
210, page 20, 210-16.8, powers and duties. Should
Oh,
there
so
be
we're only
a,
gonna do the circled ones?
yes,
Okay, got it.
Jeff, the others are very minor and Jeff is
Okay.
gonna take care of that.
Okay, no problem.
so, yes, we're just
I'm
doing the
sorry.
bullet ones.
Um,
We're- okay.
210-16.8.
And I don't have a copy of the June sixth, part one, so if somebody
Okay.
could read the phrase
This-
to me,
this is-
that would be helpful.
This is it right here.
Do you need a
And,
minute, Dorothea?
Yeah, I need a minute,
Can you pause for a minute?
please.
Just remembering that the one that you have, Dorothea, is our official one,
Well,
and any changes
well, I
that,
have a part 2, I have a part 3, I have a part 4 from Peggy.
Should be in part
it's
1.
210, chapter
I don't
210.
have a 210 part 1, unless it's zoning for a table of contents.
yes,
That is it.
that's it.
Okay,
That's it?
thank you.
Okay,
So now you're going to page 20, which should be 210-16.8.
I have it on page 20. Oh, my comments are on page 21, sorry.
yeah, now I have moved on to page 21, because that's where the end of the paragraph is. And Jeff's observation is, his question to us is, should there be a subparagraph 3? We have variances, 2, appeals, should there be 3, temporary zoning permits? That is the question.
I didn't see temporary zoning permits covered anywhere in the code.
Oh,
I could be wrong.
Molly said she's not gonna do it. So,
No.
well,
Okay,
it's outside of their purview. They recommended it be outside of the zoning code. There's a discussion about this a little while back, and I raised a similar concern, and because those are like the most common review the zoning board does, the one most common reviews the zoning board does. And if this went in, the Buffalo Bills would be denied, Christmas tree sales, all that stuff would be.
she wants it in another part of the code. Frankly, I would say that I don't think there's, do you think it's anything wrong with our current temporary zoning code?
Yeah, it has no requirements, no review criteria. It's completely,
arbitrary.
needs to be redone.
I agree, you know, I think the least confusing thing is to put it in here as you have suggested, because as Justin said, this is one of the most common, applications that the ZBA has to deal with. And I think it's gonna be less confusing to applicants to see them all together here. Would you agree, Justin?
I don't care where it is in the code, it could be in the zoning code, it could be somewhere else. I just think it's one of the issues that needs to be addressed before, my recommendation was, since it's so common, it be addressed at the same time with the full code that gets adopted.
I would agree with you.
Okay, so I don't know how to come up with parameters between now and Thursday.
Well, could we get suggestions from you, Justin, since you deal with these? Could you?
Yeah, I could send Jeff some of our resolutions, but in general, we have, there's a special exception use criteria, which talks about, which has like 5 or 6 criteria in there. We generally copy that and stick them into our.
Do you know where is it from? Is
It's
that like
it's in the.
is it the religion and education?
Nope, it's, I think it's 210, 111, which is the zoning board section of the code where it defines the zoning board.
Will they work for you? Will that work for you?
At one point in time, Bob and I worked on a draft of proposed code for this. I don't know where that ended up, that sat on their computer.
I think that,
You know, me 210, 111.
It's right around there, 114, something like that.
The Board of Appeals special exception use is also due notice. Public hearing, the Board of Appeals may grant a special exception use permit upon findings that special exception use will comply with the regulations and requirements of this chapter, be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this chapter, not tend to depreciate the value of adjacent property, not create hazard to health, safety, or general health, not be detrimental to the flow of traffic, not alter the essential character of the neighborhood.
Yeah, those are the general things we take a look at when we look at, when we make findings for
The
that.
one I circled.
All right, so,
There might, you could add a couple more, but that's at least a good start.
why don't you send me what you want me to add to more, because I want to get this stuff. Is that all right? Can you do that?
Sure.
Okay, so my proposal then, skipping around, would be that we reference temporary zoning permits here, and that we add temporary zoning permits as Article 39 of Part 3,
Uh-huh,
Okay,
which is where we've got all the other permits.
Yep.
okay.
Yep. okay.
All right, hold on, I'm gonna let you know. Okay,
Okay,
you good?
yep.
Okay, next.
Next, 210-16.8B should be eliminated since this subsection adds the possibility of confusion regarding whether the ZBA has authority to make initial zoning interpretations.
So, let me just cut to the chase here, if
Okay,
that's okay.
Yeah. and that's B.
So they, implicit in their appeals, the appeals authority in number 2 above B is the ability to make zoning code interpretations on appeals. I'm worried that people will think that somehow they can apply to the zoning board of appeals for an interpretation without going to the building inspector first.
Can't they?
No, interpretation is always the authority of the CEO, whether,
Yeah, well, they're
regardless.
the two entities that can. Usually the building inspector does it first, and if someone doesn't like it, they appeal it. Is
That's
that what
how-
you're-
Correct.
That's what the process
They
is.
can still appeal his determination, but he has to make the determination.
I've seen other municipalities where they actually have an application for an interpretation, and I haven't heard of it ever being done.
I would object, I think that's contrary to state law.
I don't think it makes any sense, because the building inspector is free and fast.
Yeah, I would,
And I would also say that in 99% of all municipalities, that's the way it operates. That's what case law is based on. It's the safer course to avoid litigation.
well, yeah, I mean, I just think it's
So
contrary to
that
state
is
law.
the proposal, and do we accept it?
I would say yes.
Okay, so we will eliminate that?
Yeah.
Dorothea? You've got that.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the only other bullet in part 1. Moving over to part 2,
Okay,
section 210.
20.9.
Oh, but we've answered the first bullet. Oh, I'm
210,
sorry, I'm in part 3.
So this is in
No,
part
one,
two.
part 2.
210.
210.
I'm already screwed up, sorry.
That's all right. 20.9C.
Which is on
Sorry.
page 7.
Sorry. Okay.
Architectural styles.
Oh, this is for Bob. Bob, and all these are, should they be capitalized? Because they aren't they a proper noun?
So in other words, federal, Greek revival, Gothic
Yeah,
revival,
yeah.
should all of those be capitalized?
Can you hold on 1 second and I'm gonna check?
You're gonna look it up?
I think so.
I've got
Jeff, why
book
would you
where I can
consider,
check.
why would you consider that
Well,
a serious issue as opposed to some of the
Well,
lesser?
it's not a serious issue, it's an issue I can't answer.
Hold on.
I should not have said serious issue. Either it's an issue I don't feel comfortable answering, or it's an issue that I can't answer.
Okay.
I don't think it's serious.
I thought the
think we're gonna go to
words
court
were
if
serious.
we don't capitalize those words.
Proper nouns, it seems like it should.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
We got the expert in the room. Capitalized, Dorothea. It happens more than once somewhere else, I think.
Okay,
Um,
so, okay,
21024.
that's, okay, capitals. 21024.4A.
That is on.
210 what, Lily?
2024.4A.
That is on page 27 of the same one, Dorothea.
Thank you.
All right, it actually,
Is it 26?
it actually comes, my question happens on 28.
Okay.
I just think the more times you can
28,
let people
sorry.
know they gotta go to the HPB, the better.
I would agree with you.
That's why I put 7, requires a C of A from the HPB for accessory uses and structures.
I think that makes sense. Yep. Okay.
Okay,
21024.6.
Hold on.
Did you get that?
No, I didn't.
Uh,
24.A.
Should add a bullet 7. Indicating that accessory uses and structures require a C of A from the HPD. And that's B as in boy, not B as in David. Just a typo in your notes, Joe.
Okay.
This is page
You good?
30.
Yep.
All right, Dorothea, take your time and then let me know if you have questions, because it's critical we get this right.
21024.6,
Okay.
yeah,
So,
is that
okay,
where we are?
E224.6, bed and breakfast.
Right. There was additional language added to that.
This is language that's in our current code that they didn't transfer.
Ah,
I don't know, did you, I'm looking at the June version.
maybe, maybe.
Correct.
So
June
am I.
6th?
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know whether the board wanted to add those additional items from the code, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, it's really a policy decision. You want me to tell you what they are?
Okay.
If you could quickly, yeah, that would be helpful.
All right, so. Seventeen D. Six. All right, so A, facilities and operations must comply with the applicable provisions of the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code.
Okay.
B is the operation must comply with the regulations of the Monroe County, New York State Boards of Health. E, the facility must be inspected by the fire marshal once every 12 months. Which seems like we want it.
Seems pretty sensible so far.
The rooms utilized for sleeping must be existing and part of the primary residential use and not specifically constructed for rental purposes. G, sufficient off-street parking shall be provided at the rate of, I remember this being somewhere, maybe I screwed this up, 1 space per double occupied room.
I think they had in the parking section of the code, that's where they were putting parking requirements for bed and breakfast.
All right, so I'll take that out. We don't want it to conflict.
Right, we don't want to duplicate.
I, there shall be no separate or additional kitchen facility permitted, commercial cooking equipment shall not be permitted. Your call on that one?
Yep, I agree.
Whatever we have now, I think is.
And the home shall not be used by public or paying guests for private parties, receptions, meetings, and the like.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep. And I think that one, that's particularly important because we're broadening the area where B&Bs potentially would be approved, and that could become a nuisance for neighbors.
Oh, sales of merchandise shall be limited to registered guests.
Yes.
All right, Dorothy, I can help you do this very easily. There's going to be added to 24.6 the following subparagraphs starting with G, capital G,
Stop.
the same provisions that current.
Stop.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. You have to yell at me louder.
And following subparagraphs, section,
G, starting with G.
G,
Which will be identical to
go ahead.
subparagraphs. Let me do it a different way. Identical to Village Code 210-17 period B period parens 6 n parens, and then these are all parentheticals. A, B, which one is that? E, F, I, N, and O.
Can we talk about O for a minute? I don't see harm in a B&B wanting to sell merchandise outside of registered guests. Like, if the Canal Lamp Inn wants to sell T-shirts, why would we restrict them from doing that to people who aren't staying there?
I think the reason, Dan, would be anytime that you allow a business or retail use in a residential neighborhood, you open up the door to expansion of that use. I think, if, let's take your example, if the Canal Lamp Inn wanted to sell T-shirts, they could certainly sell them to a guest who could buy one for someone else if they wanted to. But if they start having a little clothing store in the building, it becomes a retail use. And now, for example, B&Bs would be permissible on Sutherland Street. You could end up having a retail store on Sutherland Street. And that's a problem because of parking and also because, again, you'd be putting a commercial use in a residential area. And once you do that, if you look at case law in New York State, there's been a number of examples where someone has been able to come in and use a clause like that to say, well, you're selling T-shirts there, you can also sell coffee there, or whatever else it is. So I think there is a good reason for limiting it.
The next one is 210-24 period 8 period C period, which I think is the next page.
Yeah, it's page 31. It's at the top of the page. It's regarding gas stations.
So our current code has them 500 feet from residential. This code has 100 feet. If I've ever been in a house when they're filling the gasoline tanks,
Yeah.
it can be tough, but again, that's your
Why would we change it?
entirely your call.
Well, when the 500 foot was put in place, gas stations were allowed in the Shane Place District, B1, and whatever the district is, B2. Now, I believe they're only allowed in
Gateway.
the gateway, that's it. And if you look at the Getty station down there,
Yeah.
I would guess that those pumps are within 100 feet of a resident. 500 feet is huge.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big distance, so I'm not sure that it's feasible.
Okay,
All right, so no change.
so strike that one, then change that.
Yeah.
All right, the next one deals with additional conditions in your code in and around filling stations. 21033D.
210.
No, I'm
Yeah, you're gonna read us through what the current ones are, okay.
Let's see. One is the 500-foot rule we've talked about, and that's from public assembly. 2, 1,000 feet from an existing public garage. I don't know, we don't have any.
We don't allow public garages anymore.
So we don't need that.
That could go.
Ink. 5, dispensing station means locate, I don't know where to put that. I must have written the wrong thing.
210-33.
Oh, this is 6, each dispensing station shall have 1 parking space for a vehicle being fueled and a second space for a single vehicle waiting to be fueled. Do they cover the parking pretty well in the parking chart?
I believe they do, but we're probably gonna have to check it to make sure.
And that's a minuscule change that we
Yeah.
can always make later.
Mhm.
And this again, parking, each parking garage shall have not less than 4 parking spaces.
And we don't have garages of permitted use anymore.
Alright, so take that out. 8, each public, alright, no less than 1 parking space, oh, we don't have public garages. Forget it, never mind, no change necessary.
Okay?
Jeff, did you catch that you meant 210-33 B as in boy, not D as in David?
Yeah, I thought I said B, but I meant B.
It's typed in their D, so it is B. You've got that, Dorothea?
It doesn't matter, I sent you the new change.
Okay.
Yeah, no changes, hold on. Okay,
24.9.
And that is add the word residential under number 1. The home occupation must be clearly incidental and secondary to the residential use of the dwelling.
That makes sense, that's a good addition, I think. Clarifies what it means.
again, I don't think it's a big deal, Dan, but it's something can't pull the trigger on, that's why I put it in.
I think that's what they intended, I think you're just clarifying it.
Are you, Dorothea, do you know where we are?
Yep, I got it. First time tonight, but yes, I got it.
So, look at this and see if I'm reading it correctly. 210-2410,
Next page.
24.
Actually, 2 more pages. No.
D1?
There is no D.
I think I mean B1. I mean B1, sorry.
B1.
Yes, B1.
Okay, B1.
Such
Sure.
areas may be allowable in the public right-of-way with site plan approval. I think previously that was not permitted because we can't allow things in the public right-of-way.
That's what I thought, but, I mean,
I have a question. Now, the city of Rochester, they allow, like on Park Avenue, where people sit in seats in front of restaurants, there's a permitting process where they allow them to have seats on the public sidewalk. They also have a provision where they ensure that the walkway is not blocked with the seating. Now, I know where you're coming from because it's also under New York State Constitution, you can't procure public property for private, for-profit use.
Right.
I thought, remember when one of the places up on South Main Street
Hicks McCarthy.
wanted to put public seating, which we all thought you all thought would have been pretty cool. But there was some problem with allowing them to do that because it was in the public right of way.
You have to maintain a certain number of feet according to law for public.
I think we
Safe
could leave it,
passage.
why don't we leave it and investigate it?
Right, I know as a minimum, you'd want to have at least 5 foot clear on the
I
sidewalk,
think that was the number that.
because that's an ADA
Right.
requirement.
They didn't
But,
have 5 feet.
but I think the other issue is, I think there's a problem with having public, unless it's an event, a public event that has a public purpose, to have just merchandise in the public right of way, I think that would get us into legal trouble.
I don't know, that would just, that's why I put the. put it in.
Maybe those are Nikon questions that we could, let's, if that's okay,
Let's leave it in,
put it aside for now.
but Dorothea,
Hmm.
will you add a parenthetical after B1, check with Nikon? Because I don't want to lose this until we go away.
Nope. Okay, 210-24.15D.
So these are just things we have in our code right now dealing with restaurants. And they're part of the things which help make restaurants as opposed to taverns and bars. So it's entirely your call in terms of whether you want to add these kind of things. It's always helpful when you're doing a special permit review to know what they're really asking for from New York State. I mean, at least I've always thought it was helpful.
I think it makes sense, but I think we should be cautious because when we get to definitions, I think we want to make sure that the definition would reflect the same.
That's also on my list.
Okay, great.
Do we need to change, wait, I backtrack a little bit because we talked about this the other day. 210-2415, we removed distilleries totally, so that should be removed in this code. We're on page 34 at the bottom.
Molly, remember, has Molly done this? Well, Molly's worked on this.
And there were two,
But
We
this,
have
this
differentiated.
printed version is before those comments were sent to her.
No, because,
I see.
when did you send those comments?
Well, at the end of June, this is still June 6th.
Right, but she's, see these right here?
Mm-hmm,
These are all notes from that meeting,
yep,
so
okay.
she's made changes. And I think she noted herself to make these changes.
Note to self, okay.
The decision to strike distilleries was last week, so it would not be in this version.
Right.
Yeah, it was. No, this version contains changes from last week's meeting.
No, this is a June 6th.
I know, she didn't change the date, but I know that, but if you go to the front,
So it's really June 28th is what you're
it's,
saying?
yeah, if you go to the, go 3 pages in this draft, you see all these little black boxes and checks and everything? Those are changes she made that night. And the next page is notations she made that night.
Got it.
So these, she did this on the quick, she didn't change it to the right June date, but they contain the changes that you discussed.
Okay.
Should I be putting a note for distilleries to move
Just put a note, did you catch this change, Molly, or something like that, you know, like right after restaurants, taverns, breweries, and distilleries.
Okay.
Okay.
So the question is whether or not you wanna add any of those provisions to the restaurant use.
Well, breweries are allowed.
Yes.
No, that's not.
Right, so hear out the logic. If you add those provisions to D, then you wouldn't be allowing a brewery. You would be saying that the primary use has to be a restaurant.
No, but see, D only deals with restaurants specifically. Breweries is.
It wouldn't apply to taverns or breweries.
Okay,
Only apply to restaurants.
okay,
It
got
just
it.
applies to restaurants.
Yep, got it.
I think it's helpful to the board to have definitions for restaurants.
Well, this isn't the definitional portion, this is just additional provisions.
Okay,
It clarifies what a restaurant is.
Yes.
And so there's less confusion between what constitutes a tavern, a brewery, or a restaurant.
okay,
Was the point of the question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So
agreed.
Dorothea,
Yep.
210-24.15.D, capital D, period.
All right. hold on.
The sale of food shall be the primary source of revenue.
The sale of food.
Shall be the primary source of revenue.
Okay.
A complete copy of any application.
Did you strike distilleries out of C?
Dorothea's got a note.
2415.C?
So what did I say, Dorothea?
A complete application, a complete copy of any application
Filed with the New York State, and these are all capitalized, SLA, shall be provided.
Moving to section 3, part 2.
Wait, let me ask you a question. Are you leaving in that should, sale of food shall be the primary source of revenue? Are you leaving that in?
We're adding it.
We're adding it. It wasn't in the draft.
You're adding it.
We're transferring it from the old code.
That was the proposal.
Yeah. That's gonna be a tough one to work with. Prove.
It is.
Tough one to work with.
Yeah, but it's better to have it.
I think the intent is not that it's an enforcement item,
It's
but you want to, when an applicant comes in for a permit, you want to, as best you can, everybody to be in agreement about what the nature of the use is, so we can better determine what the potential nuisances and issues, environmental issues might be with that use.
Yeah. I get it, Frank. You're right. You're never gonna hire an accountant to go in and.
We're not going to go and check people's books and,
No.
I think that's beside the point. All right, can we move to part 3?
We answered this.
You answered the first one, so
Right.
moving to the next one, and I think we're all in agreement that variances go with the land, so there really should be an expiration.
So this section has got, let's go to that section. It's kind of discombobulated. Now, it's not discombobulated, but it's not easy of application. So I think you should let me work with Molly
Agreed.
that variances will run with the land and not be, and will be the subject of enforcement rather than revocation. Special permits, likewise. Site plan, all right, let's talk about it. So I don't want to exceed my authority because I just don't want to do that. Let's look at 210:30.6A and C.
Page 5.
All right, so here's the problem. Expiration, variances don't expire. As we presently are thinking about special permits, they don't expire. Site plans don't expire. And certificates of approval, well, we do allow certificates of approval to expire. So that if you don't,
If you don't complete them,
we have
within a year,
it
they
expires.
expire and you can renew them, but they expire within a year.
So the only thing we really have that expires is a C of A.
Can a site plan expire if no work is done within a year?
You can have it, yes, you can have it expire, but not for these conditions. See?
Right, but like on 75 Monroe, if they got they renewed, the planning board, I believe, granted them a new site plan approval because no work had been done on the one that was granted.
Yeah, you can expire a site plan, but not for the reason.
Not for these reasons, only because no work has been done at a assumes the project is not going forward.
Let Molly and I work on this in terms of revocation as well, within the parameters
Okay,
of state law. Is that okay with
Yeah.
everybody?
makes sense to me.
Am I noting anything on here?
On 210:30.6A, expiration. Parenthetical, Turner and Molly to work on. Likewise, after C, which is revocation.
While we're here, the planning board had a pretty good input on this section that I might as well just bring up right now. They said, violations is a tricky area, and they just wanted us to think about it because they said, look, there are times when somebody's under a violation, but then they're doing something that is definitely a good thing. They're improving safety for some reason, but there might be a violation that they're still angry about. And so we needed to think about exceptions for when there are violations, if they involve public safety, if they're correcting a prior problem that might lead to the violation being lifted, things like that. It's worth thinking about.
So this is not, I interrupt you, Bob, go ahead.
No, I was just, wanted to add on what Dan has mentioned there, because I think the normal process that, not only this code enforcement officer, but previous ones have followed, is if, like Dan suggested, the property owner had a meeting with the building inspector and has pledged to make a remedy, then usually the building inspector will waive the appearance ticket or whatever the other enforcement action is.
So I think, Dan, what they were talking about is not this section.
It was earlier, it was 210:30
I think the section that we're talking about is in the section, and I think it's in the enforcement and administration, I don't recall where exactly it is, the section that says if you're not in conformity with anything in this chapter or other code, blah, 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 you may not file an application for
Right.
anything.
Right.
I think that's what they're talking about.
And it also exists here, and the cases that they wanted to, and we can get to this when we talk about them. The cases they wanted to add were public safety, where is it? Special permits and a permit to correct the violation. So 210:30.1C. Page 2 of the section. And maybe it also exists in that area too, Jeff, that you mentioned.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, it's here, I think. Where did you say that was, Dan?
210:30.1
C, yes.
C.
Okay. I think that's something we can flesh out as we go further into the process, if we want.
Okay.
Okay. All right, 210:32.1.
All right, so you have, right now in our code, we have a fire safety and building prevention section, 150. We also have an administration and enforcement section in the zoning code. I don't think we want 150 to still be alive if we're having it in the zone, all of it in the zoning code. I've asked Steve to take a look at it. He's not gotten back to me. I don't think it's critical if we don't get this solved before we send it out, because
It's an administrative.
I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He
Okay.
said he had an appointment this evening, and he said he would try to put together his comments while he was waiting for.
Okay.
If everybody's comfortable with it, could we delegate this to Jeff and Steve to just make a?
I don't think I want to do that. I think I want us to accept it out so that the board has control of this. It's a very critical part when you get into how the building inspector and the CEO function, and I don't think I want to be calling the shots out.
Okay, all right.
So, for this, section 210-32.1, a note to Molly, or a note that we need to resolve these provisions, coexistence,
Stop.
with chapter 150. And I think you do that as you go into the code redrafting cycle after you ship it out.
Okay.
All right, so I have a thought about this.
Where, are you on Article
I'm
35?
on Article 34, 5. My suggestion is that we not terminate special permits for any reason so that they can run with the land, but that we make what used to be our termination provision in the code, if they occur, a requirement that there be an application for an amendment, so that you're looking at it. If it ceases operation in 6 months, if it doesn't start within a year, if you transfer operation, the special permit's still gonna exist, but you're gonna bring them back in for an amendment.
Mhm.
That way you still control the process without prohibiting it from running with the land.
I think that makes sense, because in the 20 years that we've had the special permit for food serving uses in the code, every time that ownership has transferred, there's always been a significant change to the business. And I think what you're proposing would allow the board to review that, determine if it's significant or insignificant, and address any potential adverse environmental consequences from the change.
And it also lets the person who wants to buy that business know that that permit's gonna come out the other end of that purchase. So they don't have to go into the negotiations if they wanna buy a pub. They wanna transfer the pub, they look at the code and say, oh, we just have to go check in, you know, it's not gonna expire.
It comes with the special permit, but you're gonna have to verify that you're doing the same thing.
Right, I mean, it's always been a good check-in feature.
I think so, I would agree with you.
Okay, yeah.
Makes sense?
So you would only need to go through the special permit process again if you were significantly changing what the prior use was. So for example, Panther Pit became Blades. They really didn't change much in there.
Well, my suggestion is a little deeper and more substantive than that. I would say that you would want to bring Panther Pit in, or Blades in, to one, ensure that it's the same use, but two, just to make sure they understand what the nature of the use is, because many times these people will buy the business, look at the business and say, yeah, that looks great, and they don't really take the trouble to look at the underlying permit, which allows that business. It gives everybody a chance to focus on what should and can happen at that business
A
location.
better example would be the Pittsburgh pub, when that ownership was transferred. The initial pass was that there were no changes, and then after the title was transferred, then it turned out they were completely reconfiguring the interior, adding seating, adding an additional bar, taking out walls, increasing the occupancy. So, and that would be one example of where it seemed initially it was exactly the same, but then it turned out there was an expansion that was embodied in the new business owner.
Okay, so in that example, the pub's new owners would have to go through a special permit process because they're making significant changes. And in the Blades to Panther Pit, where they did not make significant changes, they would not need to go through a special permit
They would
process.
have to go through an amendment process,
Amendment.
just an amendment process.
Okay.
So
Could
that-
we revoke their use?
No.
So
No.
Blades says, I want to do basically the same thing.
In no instance could the special permit be revoked, because you've already gone through the process to determine what those environmental issues are. The board has already made a determination how they are mitigated, and unless there's new issues, they are guaranteed continuation of the special permit.
Well, even if there are new issues, they're guaranteed continuation of the new permit with perhaps additional conditions. But they get, the permit is not expiring. It's running with the land.
So there's no scenario where the permit would be taken away or they would lose that use that's been granted.
Right. We're moving to purely enforcement. Rather than taking the time to dictate, I'll tell Molly about this.
You want me to put a note, to Molly?
Yep.
All right, next.
Let me make a note here.
All right, take your time. Take your time.
Okay. All right, so these again are out of the code. And then I attached something from another special permit ordinance that I thought looked pretty good in terms of appropriate controls for vehicular and pedestrian movement, appropriate controls for vehicular pedestrian movement are designed to provide for the safety of the general public and occupants and blah, 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 blah.
We added some language, the other night. Now who's in track of what, when we met, was it Saturday?
It was, yeah.
And it was regarding traffic and pedestrian safety. It was,
You tied to the special permits or not sure?
yes,
All right, well,
part
next
of the
time.
review.
Then
So
that's
it's
fine.
essentially the same as what you've been here from language, just slightly different, but the intent is the same.
Then we don't need to do that, so.
Okay.
The 21074C3 AC, and E. So. 3E. A is access to the site and the size of the site are adequate for the proposed use and will accommodate parking and trash storage without creating a nuisance for neighboring commercial and residential uses. That's not,
Seems pretty reasonable.
yeah.
Yep, I think we should keep it.
Is that in site plan? It probably is in site plan.
Yeah, but you want to make, I mean, it might be in site plan, but I think it's good that you take another crack at it in the special permit review.
Yes.
C, hours of operation, duration, intensity of the proposed use will be compatible with nearby commercial and residential uses. The essential character of the neighborhood shall not be altered and a public nuisance shall not be created. Proposed use shall not create a hazard to health, safety, or general welfare. All kind of police power stuff.
Those are different than what's in site plan, and I think it makes sense because, again, it's really, particularly because we have the 100-foot requirement, and if in some cases where, you know, we waive that because there's a physical barrier, you might also want to consider those criteria to determine if there's a negative adverse impact on the neighborhood.
All right, and the final one is the proposed use shall not place an excessive burden on public improvements, facilities, services, or utilities.
We added that too on Saturday.
Did you?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
It
so.
should be on there. I mean, I wrote it, I gave it to
We talked about it.
Peggy, and she made a copy of it, and,
All right,
I have
okay.
so Dorothea added to 210-35.4. F, capital F period. New subparagraphs 7 and 8, which are old code sections 210-74 point capital C period parens 3 end parens parens little a, end parens, and parens C, end parens.
Okay.
C.
Before we move into the next section, can I ask a general question, Jeff, and maybe you take a look at this? Do these definitions incorporate what's in the HPV code?
I don't think so, not entirely, because the definitions in the HPV code are extensive.
And so are they gonna remain in a separate section, or is there still an exercise to consolidate?
My understanding, and these are my notes, these are contained in these memos, is that wherever the HPV is currently listed, there will be a reference to see Village Code Chapter 211,
Which is,
HB code.
the HPV code.
okay.
And that contains intact within it
All the definitions.
all of the
you currently
HPV
have.
definitions.
Okay.
Because that was the point, it all went in all one fell swoop. It's a tough thing for people to understand, I think it's better if they see it all in one shot. And it's been approved that way by SHPO.
Yep. Why upset the apple cart if we don't have to? Right. Okay.
And you don't have to enact as much code.
Yep. Agreed. Okay.
So these are purely trustee stuff. I mean, and it's just, I pointed out, and I think we have to come to conclusion, and this may take a while.
Well, let's go through it. It's a long list, but.
Do you intend that we would write these ourselves, or would we ask Molly to just
I think
give us a
that,
start?
given our time constraints, I would think that you would want to be as explicit about your intentions as possible. Remember, Molly only has tomorrow and Wednesday to crack this all into shape. So the more guidance you can give her, I think, will be better. And I don't, and it's because a lot of some of these are easy, some are not gonna be so easy, but I think you should take the best shot you can tonight.
Okay.
That only was a 3-minute answer to what should have been a 30-second.
And I had 5 or 6 more from the planning board, and I'll go after you.
Great.
But really, there's no after me in this case, because this is really, I think, here.
I'll go after your list.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's get started.
Animal grooming shop, I mean, I don't know what it is.
It's
I
not,
think we should add it
Is
as,
I think somebody's got a microphone covered. Because I keep hearing feedback right there.
Right.
Frank, I think your papers are over the microphone there.
Is
There
that
we
better?
What?
go. Yeah, all right. Okay,
okay, I think, yes, a definition for animal grooming, because if someone has a horse they would like to be groomed, is that included?
Does anybody want water? I'm gonna get some water.
I would like some water, yeah, that'd be great.
Here's a Wikipedia definition. Grooming refers to both the hygienic care, and let me just read it before you start writing.
No, just.
Refers to both the hygienic care and cleaning of the animal, as well as a process by which the animal's physical appearance is enhanced for showing or other types of competition. It's pretty basic.
If we could condense that a little bit, and then I think as Lily suggested, limit it to household pets.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
You want me to just copy and paste and drop it in an email?
Yes.
Or do you want to read it out loud?
I know, I can add this to that in the morning.
Why don't, I'll take a running list.
Okay.
How's that?
Thank you, Dan.
A unit of land.
I got 2 glasses.
That's all right, no problem, thank you.
Yep.
What is a unit of land?
I think a parcel.
Well, hold on, now, look at the whole definition.
Okay, where is it? What page?
It's on page
It's
5.
it's just definitional, I don't,
All right.
We did animal grooming.
it's a definition of buffer.
Yeah, buffer's on page 5.
I didn't understand what I meant.
A unit of land.
Unit of land together
Is it a
with
parcel?
No, buffer, I mean, buffer means, would it be better to be an area of land? Is that what they mean?
Well, I think you could, I understand what she's trying to say here, but I don't think she said it quite precisely. A buffer, you could, like the planning board and site plan review could specify a 50-foot buffer between a parking lot and an apartment building, okay? Meaning an area.
How about a specified amount of
Now,
land?
it shouldn't be a unit of land.
How about a specified amount of land?
Yeah, correct. That would be clear.
So Dorothea, in buffer instead of unit, a specified area
Of land?
well, yeah, I mean, it just continues now. All right, so building footprint, this,
Can we go back to buffer, because
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've got another clarification here. Because sometimes the buffer could just be the land area. Other times, it is tied together with a specified type and amount of planning. It could be either way. It could be just the land area, or it could be the land area with a berm, a planting, a fence, etc.
How about a specified unit of land?
Not land, not unit of land.
Oh, did I say, no,
Land.
whatever I said,
specified,
you don't listen to
right.
me.
Mhm.
Together, where applicable, with a specified type, or where required?
How about which may or may not be used in concert with
Yes.
blank, okay?
All right.
Okay, let's try that.
Let's take out together. Which may or may not be used in concert with, oh, there's already a with.
Okay.
Okay, building footprint. This was a big issue in the APRB, 75 Monroe Ave stuff.
Yep.
Now, we are now educated at the APRB level that many times when building footprints are referred to, they do not include these items as set forth here. But when we were doing volume comparisons, we were using the footprints as demonstrated on site plans with building heights. So we intended that they include those items. But now that we know that, you may keep this definition the way it is, and we will know that if we're ever in a like situation, we will define building volume with differently. Like for instance, where the major load-bearing walls enter the ground, something like that.
Mhm.
So that's, I only noted this because it was a problem. And you could either say inclusive, or you could leave the definition like this, and then we just know to do something different in the future.
You could also make a slight change, because there's a big difference between a patio, a terrace, a breezeway, and an attached garage. One of them is very clearly part of the footprint. The attached garage is very clearly part of the footprint. Whereas a patio is not as intense a use.
It would not really be part of the perceived value of it.
Right. So I wonder if you could split this idea into two, where just hear me out, where porches, terraces, and breezeways are exclusive and parking garages are inclusive.
It's a breezeway, is that one of those,
Connects.
Yeah.
Connects a garage and a house.
wouldn't that add to the,
I think a breezeway would, and I think
it
a
add to
porch
the
would.
perceived volume? I don't know.
If you were calculating the area of a house, normally you would you would not include the area of an open porch, but a breezeway or an enclosed porch or a similar space you would include as part of the square footage of that building. So I think,
I think the garage is an excellent catch. It should not be in there because it really is part of what we would deal with.
Yeah, so it's inclusive of garages and breezeways is the argument, and exclusive of terraces and porches. Is that the argument?
and I'm not sure why it says exclusive of cellars, because a cellar would normally be part of the footprint.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Maybe the way you can handle it would be to say exclusive of porches and terraces.
Yes.
Wasn't a big issue with the projecting balconies?
Yeah, but that's not really what we're talking about footprint, not volume. So this is really related to footprint, where it enters the ground, where it's on the ground. Is that okay with everybody? What I just said, exclusive of porches and terraces and patios?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
about
that
that?
makes sense.
Right, so I'm crossing off attached garages,
Breezeways
breezeways, and
and
cellars.
cellars. And you're going to add,
Terrace,
decks and patios.
and terraces,
That's already there.
okay.
Go back to cellars for a minute. Why would that matter in a footprint if it's underground?
It's part, well,
It matters for volume, but it doesn't matter for footprint.
no, I think what Bob's saying is that it is part of the footprint. So-
Normally, if you look at the New York State Building and Fire Prevention Code, a cellar and a basement, and there's a legal difference between them
Mhm.
depending on how far they're buried. But they are normally underneath the full footprint, so they're not exclusive of it, they're normally part of the
Part of the,
footprint.
part of the footprint, because you're gonna put the house on top of it. It's not sort of nonsensical to include cellars. I don't think it changes anything, it just is
I don't
confusing.
think it would either. You can't see too many situations where the cellar goes way beyond the walls.
And I don't think I think the point is that it's incorrect.
If you were in Oklahoma where there's tornadoes, maybe,
Right.
right, but not here.
Right, just make sure I have this right. Porches, terraces, decks, and patios, correct?
I think so.
All right, next.
I don't know, do we need that, getting to your point, because there's a difference between basements and cellars. Do we care? Do we need to define basements and cellars? I don't think it's tied to anything in the code.
It's only in New York State, well, where it might come into play is with a story. Because a walkout basement, and it's in the, I don't remember exactly what the number criteria is, but if the cellar is mainly exposed, it's a basement. If it's like most of our houses where it's buried, it's a cellar.
All right, so I'll tell you what you do right now in your current code, and that's that distinction. Basement, a story, so there's the key right there, a story, the floor of which is 2 feet or more below grade, but with no more than 1/2 of its height below grade. Cellar, a story, so this is still a story, partly underground and having more than 1/2 of its clear height below the average level of the adjoining ground.
That's exactly the language
Okay.
from the state fire prevention.
Okay, that we should add it.
So hold on. A cellar shall not be considered in determining the permissible number of stories.
Mhm.
So you're counting basements,
But not cellars.
So
is
we have to define it.
is that what you want?
Yes, that makes sense.
All right,
Because when a basement is exposed, visually, it looks like a story, so there's an issue of scale. A cellar is always buried, so it doesn't matter.
under the B's,
Uh-huh.
add current code definition for basement.
The planning board had the same question. That was one where,
Grapevines.
yeah.
Do you want the one?
And then Cs, under the Cs, add
Cellar.
current code definition for cellar. All right, so I'm gonna go back because Bob's a tree guy.
Yep.
The current definition of caliper has this sentence in the middle that talks about trees in excess of 6 inches in diameter. And I don't know why it's there, because caliper is, the definition then goes on to say caliper is a tree in 6 inches or less in diameter. So take a look at the caliper definition, will you, Bob, and just be sure we're not.
6 inches over. Seems clear to me. The reason trees larger, they measure them 12 inches up, is because as a tree grows, there's a flare at the base, and you get a more accurate measurement that way.
Yeah, but what it says is the measurement, caliper, the measurement of size in inches of the diameter of small trees, so it's under 6 inches. Oh, I see, the small trees are under 6 inches. Okay,
Yep,
I'm fired.
okay. That's all right, that's all right, got it.
So, no change, Dorothy, never mind, I gotta make a note over here.
Right.
Okay, I'm glad I asked you that. Compatible.
I'm gonna read this.
May I point out, you have a note from your previous meeting?
I think area is right there, rather than village. Because you want anything to be compatible within a change of anything, from green space to residential, from residential to business. It's not just about Pittsburgh Village abutting the town of Pittsburgh.
I was thinking more that not only should it be having a pleasing or concurrent arrangement of elements of the use of blah, 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 of a neighborhood or the village, that you would include the whole village when you take your measurement.
I think it's a matter of degrees, and I think there is an argument for including the village, because the village as a whole has a distinctive pattern to it, you know, with high density in the business district to lesser density on the edges. And I think what your suggestion is that, you know, you look at the immediate context, but you also look at the larger context of the village as a historic cultural landscape and how it fits in with the pattern of building in the entire village.
I guess I was probably coming at it more from the HPV perspective.
Well, that's what I was thinking of it from also.
Can I read the note from Saturday?
Yep.
It says B&L, please refer to definitions of compatible and include references from the National Park Service and Village Historic Preservation Board design standards. Our purview to assist with this.
Yep.
So I don't know if that changes that whole section.
Yeah. Means we don't have to add village because it's there.
Right, or neighborhood, area, or village, and village.
Wouldn't hurt to put it in there.
Yeah. Because area is really important to have in there, because
Oh,
green
yeah.
space isn't a neighborhood. A
Yeah.
canal isn't a neighborhood.
You know, I thought there was area in one of the preceding ones, but there's not. I think area should be in there. Neighborhood, comma, area.
Yeah, I agree, Dan.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Okay, so what am I doing?
You're adding the word or village to the last bullet under compatible at the end. So it will read of a neighborhood, comma, area, comma, or village.
So this next one is, what I did was, I went through the permitted uses in the use tables. And one of the uses, and it might be an accessory use, is concessions, food, or retail services. I don't know what that means when it's used in the code.
Well, the only thing I could think of, concessions would be like the hot dog stand, wouldn't it?
Right, but once you do that, then could you keep out liquor? Not that Little League would want to be selling beer and wine. But I just don't know if we're gonna somehow distinguish this from a tavern or a bar was really my point.
Oh,
You're
does it
selling
come
to-
together?
If you're selling concessions, food, or retail services other than, I don't know,
Is concessions in here?
it's in the use table.
It's in the use table.
I see.
That was my
Well,
point.
then we should have a
Definition
definition.
for it then.
And I,
Yes.
and I think the definition should be limited to food and
Yeah.
non-alcoholic beverages, right?
I
Yes,
don't think you can do that.
define concession.
You can't, once you allow people to sell beverages, you can't tell them what kind of beverages to sell. If they get a permit from the SLA, they can do it. So mom and pop have a little sandwich shop. You allow that as permitted use. You can't say except you will not sell liquor or alcohol. So I don't know what the
So
purpose.
anybody can sell alcohol.
I think so. I mean, that's what I'm getting from all the work I've done over the last year and a half, is that you open if you allow food and beverages, I think you have a hard time keeping out alcohol.
Well, okay, so right now, the hot dog stand can't sell alcohol because it's located on municipal property. I
Right.
think that's prohibited by state
Yep.
law.
So all right, so let's take that piece out of it.
Okay.
Do you want to have a definition for concessions, food and retail, concessions, food and retail services, so you know what it is?
Separate. One for concessions, one for retail services, and one for, why
Yeah,
would
but
it be
that's-
lumped together?
Well, it's,
Go ahead and should.
that's the way it is in the use table.
Where is
Yes,
it
really?
permitted? Do we know?
You don't turn it on and then.
I mean, I'm just trying to think where we would allow concessions. Historically, we haven't because we've had so much opposition from the merchants that
Right, because it's,
they felt we're paying taxes, and if you allow concessions, you're allowing somebody to piggyback without paying.
Take a look
The rest of you
at,
probably
where's the
said-
open special purpose districts? Anybody remember where the open spaces are?
open spaces,
Yeah, what's that district called where you're,
OS.
OS.
Open space, yes, OS.
I don't know where it is. Oh, it's gotta be under, would it be under special, probably 23?
Oh, because there's concessions at the Bob Ford field, that's
Yeah,
probably
that's
what
what
they're
I'm
trying
saying.
to accommodate.
23,
But when you have concessions with a special event,
Yes, that's
Food
different.
truck.
like food truck rodeo.
And that comes under a different clause because that's part of a public event which is open to the public, and so the commercial use is considered accessory, and therefore it's not granting, private use of the public property. There are limited circumstances.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
page, I'm in part 2, page 25. And this is in OS districts. Halfway down the page, concessions, food or retail sales. And I don't know what that means.
Maybe it means a concession that sells food or T-shirts, for instance. A concession that sells things.
But do you think we should have a definition
Yes.
of,
If it's an allowed use, we can have to have a
it's an
definition.
accessory use in the OS district, is concessions, food, or retail sales.
Okay, yeah. Now, it could be like, on certain events, the town has allowed the hot dog truck or other, when they have an event in Port of Pittsburgh Park.
Wouldn't that be part of their
That
special?
comes under the
not-
special use, I mean, that's temporary.
Right, the temporary zoning.
Here's another definition, a commercial operation within the premises of a larger concern, typically selling refreshments.
I think that's a good definition.
Yeah, that's a good definition.
That's not bad.
That's a good find, man.
Yeah, I think that, Dorothea,
Mm-hmm.
definition for
I'll send it, I'll just copy and paste it for you. I got it.
concessions, food, or retail services will be what Dan just sent you.
Good.
Do you think that they meant concessions with a colon and then retail? Those
I
are
don't
the
think
types of
so.
concessions.
I don't think so because it's in the open space. I think if they're thinking one operation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I mean, we could ask them what they were thinking, but, and that's my guess.
Okay.
I'm here for 3 minutes and I lost everything. Okay.
On your next one, I agree with that. We should be specific.
I've skipped over something. Is it dwelling, single family? Is that how we got there?
That's the next one, which is,
Well, I know, but I'm trying to figure out how that ties to the actual definitions.
Dwelling unit?
is it
yeah,
single
dwelling.
family dwelling unit or
Yeah, so it's under dwelling.
dwelling, under dwelling, okay. Oh, dwelling, here we go. Dwelling unit, single family dwelling unit, two family dwelling.
What am I talking
I think,
Attached.
about? Detached, single family dwelling. I don't know what that is.
well, a detached is a normal house, like, but attached is with a common wall with another dwelling.
So do we need to talk about that?
I think it's noted in the code and it's permitted in the, there is a district in which attached, single-family dwellings are permitted.
Multifamily?
Well, no, it's different from multifamily.
All right.
It's,
No, I mean, I think it's in the multifamily district.
yes, correct. But I think we should define it since it is listed as a
Do you
permitted
think we
use.
need to? Isn't it gonna be Merriam's and Webster's dictionary that says you got two units stuck together? I don't know, it's possible.
With a common wall, a
Yeah.
common party wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I'm not sure you need a definition, is my answer.
I think it's always safer to have.
Okay, so- Do we need,
Two single-family dwellings attached or that share a common party wall.
Okay.
as, all right, let's just, 2 seconds.
Wall or floor, right?
What's that?
Wall or floor? Floor ceiling?
If it's, normally if it's a floor, then it's multifamily. I think there's a different term in the building code for that.
So we got dwelling and structure.
You see where I'm going with that, Bob? Where some are split like this,
I
some
do.
are split
Yeah.
like this.
I think it's a duplex.
A
No.
duplex is split
A du-
horizontally.
Well, a duplex could be like the house on Lincoln Avenue next to the church that's this way or this way. But normally, an attached dwelling only has a party wall. It's,
So I think we need dwelling detached
Mhm.
and dwelling attached to dwelling detached.
Simply because it's a permitted use in the code, I think we should probably define it.
So you've already defined dwelling attached.
Mm-hmm.
Can you read that back slowly for Dorothea?
What I just said?
Yeah.
An attached dwelling, a single-family dwelling, two single-family dwellings joined by a common party wall.
2 single-family dwellings.
Attached.
Attached by a common
Party wall.
wall. What would detached detached be?
Detached is a standard single-family dwelling, that's,
Do we have to define it?
no,
Okay.
because we've already said
Right,
single-family dwelling.
Yeah, okay. Right. Good.
Okay?
All right, so these occur in the code and they are not lumped together. But, you know, floor area, flag lot, building line, rear and building lines, side, you know, and they're not, we use them, they're not defined.
I think we should define them, I think it makes sense. It just ensures that the interpretation is clear.
So in F, Dorothea. Oh, hold it, no. Go to B. Building line is what?
Where are you?
No, we gotta come up with a definition.
Oh,
Saying
building,
that if it's not included, I think that we need to get a definition from the state, for
I think
building
it-
lot. I'm
No,
sure
no,
it's very
building
specific.
line.
A line,
One of your definitions,
is that a lot line?
no, building line is the line of the building and by which you then reference setbacks, it's front setbacks, side setbacks.
there's, I think,
Tell you what, I tell you what, building line to be completed later. Point.
this would be easy for Molly and John, to quickly,
Okay,
because these are common definitions, they have them on their computer.
all right,
They
Molly
just
and
need to
John.
plug them in.
Building line, Molly and John.
Okay,
How about building line rear? Oh, no, all right. So idiot Turner's finally figuring out what he means here. We don't have flag lot line. We don't have a definition of building line rear. So under the B's, building line rear, Molly and John come up with a definition.
okay.
And then building line side, Molly and John come up with a definition.
Yeah, it's gonna be the same thing, and I think the key thing is that you would, to determine, porches are normally part of the building line. So
Right.
if you have a front setback, you can't put a porch in the front setback.
Right.
Okay?
So F's, floor area.
Again, that should be
Oh.
easy to define.
Okay.
And
Any
it
F's
should be
floor area?
defined.
In there, hold on. Floor area,
John and Molly to plug in definition.
Flag lot, same thing.
Same thing. I think Molly was gonna work on this definition of a small hotel or something.
We did talk about that the other day as well, Saturday, and we determined to use the word boutique. And then under, I think under guidelines, design guidelines, there were, specific size parameters.
And those are all in the notes already.
Those are all on the notes already.
Good to go.
All right.
And those notes will be submitted.
yeah, I have
Okay.
it.
Hey, we're coming up on 2 hours. Would you guys mind a 5-minute break?
Oh, sure. Let's do it.
Dan, I'm having way too much fun.
What do you think, Ray?
Yeah.
I'm for it.
We can all get up and stretch. Good idea. Good idea.
And then we have to be able to wind this up before 8:30, I think we can.
That would be great.
So all we have to do is vote to take all of the memos that Jeff has sent us to make it part of the record, so that Molly can make certain that they are reflected in her final draft.
We've only got a few more, and then we have whatever Dan talked about.
Okay, but I also want to vote to make certain that the memos are part of the record so that Molly has them.
Well, I've made some changes, like for instance, I think we've dealt with all the circled bullets. The only thing that she has to do for my memos is the uncircled bullets.
That's correct.
And
So we got the last page.
in the interest of making this as absolutely complicated as possible.
I'll
say
say
complicated as possible, but I gotta go.
No, we're already there. Dorothea, you're already living through the most complicated we can make it.
Okay, can everybody ready to get back at it?
Yeah,
All right, definition of mixed-use structure or municipal structure. I think those are both good additions.
We have to come up with definitions then.
I think, again, these are so
Okay.
yeah, I think that.
All right.
I think we could just delegate this to Molly. I don't think we need to overthink it, because those definitions are in most codes, and that's.
If we don't like it, we can change it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Dorothea?
I'm getting there. There's no other M's in all the definitions?
That's why I reached so we would leave, M would not be left out.
I'm so
So-
glad you did.
So both of those, mixed-use structure and municipal structure, Molly and John to plug in definitions. Canned definitions.
Same thing with the next one, outdoor assembly, seating, display area. I mean, assuming you meant outdoor assembly, outdoor seating, and outdoor display area, and place of worship and pond. All of those are standard things. I think, again, we could just ask Molly to add them.
So you're gonna have to give Dorothea time to skip over letters and so forth to get
Mhm.
back.
Yep.
What, you do all the first three under outdoor, Dorothea? Outdoor assembly, outdoor seating, outdoor display area.
All right,
Under O.
I'm just finishing up municipal.
I don't think that when you, in the next one, you're talking about recreation or entertainment facility, we talked about that the other day, but that was confusing to me. But outdoor,
We let Dorothea,
huh?
we should
What,
let
I'm
Dor-
sorry.
we should let Dorothea finish her,
Oh,
so she'll be confused.
okay.
It happens easily. Okay, outdoor assembly, you want all of these under?
You can use outdoor assembly,
Okay.
outdoor seating, outdoor display area, three separate,
Okay,
Things.
gotcha.
and we're leaving them with Molly and John.
She's gonna get back to us about outdoor display,
Mhm.
right? Because
Place of
that was not
worship,
something that we currently permit.
place of worship and pond likewise under P, Dorothea, when you get there.
We currently do not permit outdoor display,
I don't know, but use the code, it's used.
but the word is used,
Mhm.
so we have to know what it is.
Right.
Okay, and that place of worship?
Yep.
Okay, same, place of worship under the P's, place of worship and pond.
Yep.
Same drill.
Place of pond.
Okay. Next.
Okay,
Are you ready, Dorothea?
I'm ready.
Okay, so this next bullet goes specifically to, there is a recreation or entertainment facility, outdoor food services allowed, and that definition does not include the sale of beverages. I guess I'm inclined to leave it that way, because they'll sell soda and tea and stuff like that anyway, and we're not gonna yell at them for it. So I'm gonna scratch that out.
I agree.
Oh, no, it's bulleted, so we're already dealt with it. Okay. So this is where we get into the definition of restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a pretty good one of the code that pretty much tracks the SLA definition.
Mm-hmm.
So I would use the one from our code.
Agreed.
So Dorothea,
According to restaurant.
restaurant. Do you want me to get you a specific code reference, or do you want me just, I will do that, never mind. So in place of restaurant definition, put definition from 210-74
Hold
period.
on.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hyphen 74 period
Mm-hmm.
H, capital H, period.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay.
Why do I say this? Look at definition of retail store. It's on page 11, retail store.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's because it says restaurant. So that's why I said you want to add tavern,
Yeah, when,
restaurant, tavern, or brewery. You're trying to distinguish from, I think it would be illegal to have a retail store where you're selling. I don't know why this is in there.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
I don't think you can sell open, you can't
No,
consume at a retail store.
no, you cannot. She doesn't understand that. but-
Well, she does. This is a canned definition from somewhere.
Well,
Let's see what's good about it though.
What does shall not include? Saying the retail store doesn't include essentially a bar.
Yeah, no, but it says. Oh, I get it. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Dan. So.
Yeah, and that's an important thing, because you could, without it, you could argue that a bar is a retail store, if that wasn't in there.
I think you should add tavern or brewery then.
Sure.
Restaurant, tavern, bar, or brewery
okay,
to the end of retail store.
Mhm.
Yeah.
okay.
and that is because,
You don't want them to
seven,
say it's a permitted use because it's a retail operation. This is really huge, as Dan points out.
Yeah, I think it's a good distinction.
Really huge.
Mm-hmm.
so
Otherwise,
you can't define it as
if-
retail
otherwise,
operation.
right, otherwise it would say retail use or
Yeah,
the production or the processing of agricultural products.
yes,
So this is that. You're taking retail, you're taking restaurants, bars, taverns, and breweries out of the being a retail store.
Right.
okay.
You're distinctly saying they are not retail stores. Don't think of them as that, because then you could get around special permits. Yeah.
Gotcha. Temporary storage unit for Malian,
Definitely, we should define it.
well, we'll give it to Malian, Jen,
Yep.
under T's.
Already there.
Yes, and I agree with the next bullet also.
But I don't, do you want to rely on their definitions, or where do you want to, I mean,
Well, I think once they stick them in there, then we'll take another look
good
at it.
idea. So,
She can, see, we're gonna take a lot of time coming up with it. It's already been written. They can plug it out if we don't like it, then
We'll shoot at it.
Yeah, we'll shoot at it, right.
All right, use. We don't have time for you to sneeze.
Chill. Okay, you scared it away. Okay. So is it under you?
Use. Comma. Principal / primary.
So that's an addition or that's an edit to the existing word use?
I don't know. Let me take a look what's
It,
in
it,
there.
what I'm asking is this two different definitions or one definition?
Let's take a look. It's there right now.
Use, the specific purpose for which land or building is designed, arranged, intended, or which it may be occupied or maintained. I think it makes sense to do it exactly as you did, Jeff, because you're gonna see it, when you look at use, then you're gonna see a distinction. Not too many people are gonna think to look at primary under P.
Right, but Dan, to answer your question, two definitions.
Two definitions.
Yeah, because principal and primary use is pretty pivotal in the rest of the code.
Right.
And that's a Molly and John.
Molly and Jen.
Right.
And what's in there is a broader definition which could encompass any use.
Yep, yep. All right, with regard to the definition of yard, front yard, that's exactly right, because we just defined building line, and so you might as well refer to it here.
Yeah, I don't like the roof portion of the building because it omits an uncovered porch, an uncovered, you know,
Yep.
big deck or something like that. And not that you would allow a deck on the
You
front.
wouldn't want a deck on the front, in the front setback, for example, because, or even on the side setback, if you had a, you know, say a 10-foot setback, then you might be putting a deck up next to the neighbor's house.
Yeah, but think about the rear or the side. You wouldn't, if you had put a deck on, you would want that to count against the setback.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
so I think you should take out roof line.
I
I'll say, Dorothea, do you know what our intent here is?
No, I have no.
Go to Y.
I'm at Y.
I am not. Yard front, yard rear,
Yard side.
yard side. So yard front, instead of nearest roof portion of the primary structure, it should be front building line.
So the front building line.
Replaces roofed portion of the primary structure. Or Bob should replace nearest roof portion of the primary structure. Yes, I think the whole phrase should go out, nearest roof portion of the building. I think it should be front building line. Because remember, we've already put in front building line before.
Right.
Okay, so I'm crossing off nearest roofed portion
Of the primary structure,
and putting in front building line.
correct, front building line.
That's what I have. Okay, next.
So, then in the next one, rear, you're taking out nearest roof portion of the primary structure again.
Uh-huh.
And rear, then putting in rear building line.
Okay.
Last one, and starting in the first line, coming out is the nearest roof portion of the building. Right, okay. And put in, why did they, take a look at this, guys, why did they add accessory building to the side and it's not in the rear?
Right.
That's strange.
What should it be? It should be, depending on how we define front or rear and side building line. I think accessory building should come out, because don't we have different setbacks
Yes.
for accessory buildings?
You have to comply with setbacks for accessory buildings, correct?
Yeah, but they're different setbacks.
Right.
So I think, Dorothea, in yard side,
Uh-huh.
we're gonna strike out the nearest roofed portion of the building
Mm-hmm.
or of any accessory building that comes out. And we're putting in side building line.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hmm?
Thank you.
Good luck.
I would like to, make a motion that we enter as part of the record that we're sending to Molly and John, the 4 memos from Jeff Turner to be included in their draft proposal. Go ahead.
The non-circled bullets to be added.
Need to be, our edits that you have suggested that need,
Yeah, but she's already got those edits over there.
Yeah.
So those, that's gonna go to Molly.
right?
These 4 memos are gonna go to Molly. To be included in the code are the non-circled bullets and the non-struck out,
I see, because we've already dealt with them.
yes.
Redundant, I see. So,
Amend your
did that
motion.
make sense?
So-
I added it.
You're gonna amend your
Jeff helped me to
motion,
amend it.
you're gonna amend your motion to so move what I just said.
So moved.
And another amendment is to also include the notes from Peggy
Oh, yeah, from Peggy from
from
Saturday.
Saturday.
Yes,
Yes, good, good, good.
Well, we can tie all of them in motion and say Dorothea's notes are now gonna be moved along as well.
Yes.
Everybody's notes.
Okay.
And they're coming from me, Dorothea, because I've got strikeouts on mine. I'm gonna
Do we
give
wanna
you-
wait, because Dan had 5 or 6 items? Dan,
Yeah,
you wanna-
and they're all in the definitions portion.
Okay,
All
So
right,
let's
so
just keep going.
So table the motion?
But
we'll table the motion, finish yours, and
well,
then.
here's the only reason why I wouldn't table this motion.
uh-huh.
What I'm dealing with is Jeff's memos.
Mhm.
Now we are dealing with the PBZAs, so that would be a separate motion to include the PBZAs.
I think we're just going to incorporate those into the master document.
Okay, so does it, so it,
Why don't we finish this motion and then we'll go on to.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so
Okay.
I'll second Lily's motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good. Dan, we've got the floor.
Okay, so
Dan, can I just hold you up for 2
Sure.
seconds? All right, I'm gonna give you these, Dorothea, but would you please, can I get copies back?
No.
Did you just say no?
Yeah, she did.
you're welcome to mine.
I
No,
will
I
make
need
that
mine.
copy.
I need mine because they got strikeouts on them.
Oh.
All right, so this goes to their official set. I'm just gonna need them back at some point, like, maybe you can email them to me tomorrow.
Yeah, all right,
I
you
don't
can
think
say
I'm
I'll
gonna read
copy
them
it
and-
tonight.
Whatever, okay.
these are a little harder, what these guys proposed. We can take or leave them. They said, do you want me to run down all of them and then we'll go one by one?
I mean,
Or just do it one by, there's probably about 8 of
think-
them.
are they definitions?
Yeah, they're requests for definitions. And when we can say whether we want them
Yeah,
to
yeah.
make a definition.
If the
or
board
not.
wants to keep working, I mean, they've got time to go ahead.
The first is violation. Do we think that we need a definition of violation?
I would be cautious about that because violation has a criminal procedure connotation.
So it's
Yeah.
defined in New York State law? or-
Yeah, it's defined in New York State law, and also I think violation is enough of a term of art in the case law, and I think it might be also be in the New York State Fire Prevention and Building Code. I don't think you need a definition of violation.
It is in the fire prevention code. It is in there. I know that.
I don't think you need a definition of violation, because it's so many other places.
We don't want to be redundant or.
Well, you don't want to be in conflict.
Right.
That would be my thought.
So, okay. Next was alteration.
It's in the HPV code. You could punch it into the It's great, we got a good definition in the HPV code.
Why don't we just scarf that and put it in the broad, because it does affect site plan, which is why they probably call it, because they see it often.
All right, Dorothy,
Alteration is,
A's,
it's in here. There is an alteration.
Is it in there?
but maybe they didn't like it, or they have not seen this.
Maybe they didn't see it.
No, they were looking at it, so they must have,
It's on page 4.
Yeah, there it is.
okay, then that's a mistake. Remodeling is the next.
What is the next one?
Remodel?
Remodel, okay.
I do not believe that's an HPV code.
It's a good one to have, though.
I'll tell you what, the HPV code alteration definition is much different than this one. It talks about, an alteration is, and then it has a bunch of things that is all encompassing, including demolition, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you want to know?
you tell me, board, whether
So-
you want this definition, or we could tweak it later.
I would say, why don't, if we have a broader and more precise definition in our current HPV code, why don't we transfer it here?
The note is then replaced with HPV code definition of alteration.
Okay, so remodel was the next thing, Dan?
Yeah.
I think that would be covered under
It's not in here.
Alteration?
Alteration.
Alteration.
well, it's unless you're talking about interior remodeling.
Interior work.
Well, yeah, but the HPV code won't deal with exterior remodeling. Is there any, I see where they're headed,
Interior.
but that's more of a building code issue, the remodel. Was remodeling defined in the building code?
I have to look. I think it's probably called alteration.
Do we know more than, they want a definition of remodel?
Does it, what's the difference between alteration and remodel
Well, it would be alteration interior.
though? Alteration, exterior, interior, remodel, exterior, interior, it's the same word,
I think it is.
it's the same meaning.
So then you want to make it,
So,
a synonym?
well, I'll tell you what,
remodel C alteration?
yeah, or, well, here's what we'll do, I think. Alteration, leave that one in, this one.
So cross off my note to them?
Yeah, well, let me
Yeah, finish your thought.
talk this out. Do we want an alteration and then alteration exterior and then put in, or is that too confusing? It's kind of too confusing.
To treat one exterior as alteration and interior as remodel?
You could do.
Is that where you were going?
Exterior, you could leave the HPV section alone and say alteration exterior or interior, and then put the HPV code definition, but include interior.
I would recommend consistency and, the same definition in both places, otherwise you're gonna create confusion and conflict. And I think what Dan suggested before was maybe, remodel C alteration, I think that's a good way of handling it.
We don't know, though, if their concern was interior. Why would they be concerned with interior? Why would the planning board be concerned with interior?
One of the reasons that they mentioned yesterday was the C of O, and that Justin gave a really good example. You get the outside of the building taken care of, but you can't find somebody to really finish it. And so the C of O takes a long time. He said his own remodeling has been this case. He can't find somebody to do the drywall. He can't find somebody to do the floors. But the outside has been taken care of.
So that they're thinking about it from the C of O perspective.
That was one of the reasons, yes.
Well,
But I don't know if it's exclusive to C of O.
one way you could parse it, so they're give them two different definitions. If alteration was the APRB definition, and then you could say interior remodel, which that would be explicitly what probably Justin is talking about.
How about remodeling interior? So under ours,
Mm-hmm.
wait for it. John and Molly.
Okay, good, like it.
That's that part.
Yeah.
A basic Google definition of remodel was change the structure or form of a building. It doesn't specify inside or outside, but
Yeah, I think we want to keep the outside the way consistently.
okay.
Yes, and that, the standard language in the field, in the architectural contracting field, is alteration for structural changes to a building is an alteration.
The word remodel appears in our code 3 times, our existing code 3 times, and it's always in terms of how you would use. So one is in talking about a temporary dumpster when you're doing a remodeling. The other is talking about a storage of refuse when you're doing a remodeling, and the other one's talking about recyclable materials when you're doing a
In
remodeling.
common usage, remodeling usually, you know, if you're splitting hairs here, is more about finishes,
Yeah.
decorating, you know, layout, you know, seating layout, thing, that's like, you think about a restaurant remodel, it's usually not structural, it's usually,
Do you need a seal?
I wonder if we could define it that way. It's not a structural change, it's an aesthetic change.
I think we should talk to Steve, because he's not only a contractor, but a CEO.
Why don't we leave it with John and Molly, and then we'll shoot at it later
Okay.
this week.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, next
Good.
one on the list is enlargement.
Couldn't
Do
it
we
just
know
be
where that
expansion?
currently, do we know where that is in the code?
I don't.
Addition is gonna be the most commonly used term, but enlargement,
Can
expansion.
can I, here, let's do this, if you don't mind. Let me suggest, don't write. Why don't we have a note to Molly, do enlargement,
Mhm.
and then have a note to Molly, is enlargement used in the present proposed zoning code?
I would just say, again, in terms of terminology in the architectural field, expansion is a lot more common than enlargement. Because if you're talking about a building expansion, a use expansion, that is a much more common term than using enlargement.
It is in there, it's in 210.10.4, which is establishment and applicability. Zoning affects every structure and use, so talking about zoning, and it's in the building permit section. No person, firm, or corporation shall commence the erection, enlargement, alteration. It's in, that's basically it. It's in there twice.
Enlargement
Yeah.
of what, Dan? What section are we at? It's in what?
So 210, 32.1, which is building and zoning code compliance. It's right at the very beginning. So it's page 9.
Enlargement, alteration, improvement.
I mean, that seems pretty black and white to me. I
I
don't
don't
think,
think we need a definition of
I don't
enlargement.
think you do.
You're gonna leave that, you're gonna leave that with the building inspector to decide, and if
Yeah.
he says, he makes a decision you're not happy with, then you'll appeal it to the ZBA.
I'm okay with skipping that one.
I'll point out you have no E's in your E section.
I noticed that.
Well, then we better go to enlargement.
Yeah, we better put something in there.
I'm just saying.
Similar is improvement. Why would we need
I think you're gonna leave that with the building inspector, because he would understand. Yeah, I don't know.
You know, I think, I mean, all these terms are similar. Alteration is in there now. You know, you could probably come up with a 50
I think
more
improvement,
terms.
maybe improvement should be in the code, I didn't know that, that's sort of like a, one man's improvement is another man's deficit.
but improvement, see alteration. Enlargement, see alteration.
Except alteration is gonna be exterior. That definition in the HPV code is exterior.
Okay.
It's tied to exterior, I know that it is,
Mhm.
because their jurisdiction is limited. I think you leave it with the building inspector to say, this is an improvement which needs X. C of O, building permit, whatever it is.
Another common use for the term of alteration, and again, I understand why this is not in the HPB code, but if you structurally alter a structure, you don't structurally remodel a structure, you
No,
structurally alter it.
Yep.
So there is probably a expanded definition from alteration that you might want to have in site plan, but not necessarily in HPB.
But that's really gonna be up to the building inspector to take that over.
You're right, you're correct. And it's also defined in the Uniform Building and Fire Prevention Code. What else, Dan?
Change in the nature of occupancy. It's actually in the same sentence.
Is that the same as change of use?
Well, let me read for context. No person, firm, or corporation shall commence the erection, enlargement, alteration, improvement, conversion, or change in the nature of an occupancy of any building structure, or cause the same to be done, or perform any other work for which a building permit is required without first obtaining a separate building permit from the building inspector.
I'm of the same opinion that this is a building inspector call, that he's gonna look at the nature of the use and determine whether or not it's changed, and he's gonna decide whether or not you need to comply with this.
Right.
And if the person's not happy, this is not really a planning board issue. Well, it could be a ZBA issue if they end up with an appeal, but they'll decide the appeal.
Okay. Now, this is the last one, and you're going to enjoy this one, Bob.
Okay.
They talked about when is it pruning a tree and when is it fundamentally altering the nature of the tree. How do you determine that in black and white? It's a fair question.
I think you could define pruning as routine maintenance to remove diseased or dead limbs that does not affect the overall health or shape of the tree.
But you're not always, there are aesthetic reasons to trim a limb too. Now, it's not always for the health.
Selective removal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's visual reasons, like if it's blocking a sign or a corner or visibility is an issue. So I think you could have that, you're right.
But then does that give you too much license to change the tree however you would want?
Well, aren't we concerned, what's the context here?
I think what they're concerned probably about is somebody says they're gonna prune a tree and they cut half of it off and it's something different.
It then eventually dies.
Right.
What would the circumstance be where a homeowner would be
Do we
pruning a tree that we would be involved in
we
pruning a
prevent?
tree?
What's that?
Do we prevent tree removal?
We don't currently have a tree ordinance. One of the things that has been suggested is that we have an ordinance that, I think somewhere in there was clearing of more than, I don't know, there was in the site plan, there's one section for clearing trees. The tree ordinance, it was suggested that we have a tree that we identify like specimen trees over a certain size that.
20 inches usually is the standard.
Yeah. And the example was if you go behind Bill McBride's house, there's a 200-year-old walnut tree that.
Yeah, that would be the only time, but for somebody pruning their, a tree in their yard, we don't interfere with that. Why? So why would it, I don't understand where
They
it
were
would fall
talking
under
about,
code.
Yeah, Mike, you wanted to say something?
they were talking about seeker actions. Page 6, where it,
Mike, what part are you in?
210, 210-30.8.
Okay.
Why don't we just have Molly John, say, let's give us a definition for tree pruning, and then we can shoot at it as you suggested at the next meeting.
Well, in future meetings, not next meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not anticipating that we're gonna do any.
That's what I meant.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I
Are we
mean,
going under tree, or are we going under pruning?
I'd say tree pruning.
Tree pruning, yeah.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, I think that's an easier place for people to find it.
And they're gonna have a lot more,
Oh,
by the way.
I'm
They're only, they would say they're about a third of the way through it. They estimated somewhere between 4 to 8 more meetings to get through what they've done, to get through the whole thing, depending on how much they tackle at each meeting. I have some logistical things to cover, some tactical stuff related to this. Do we want to dismiss Jeff, or this is like scheduling stuff? Oh no, you should be here for this.
I think Jeff should be
Yeah.
here because he has a better handle on the legal time deadlines than we do.
So one of them is it really a question for John and Molly, which is we've now sent over a whole bunch of edits and some notes and all kinds of changes.
We'll go tomorrow.
We've got to be able to see what they change in this next version, because we can't go through and read a couple hundred pages again and try and compare two documents. So
Agreed.
we need something from them. However Molly and John want to do it, we just need something that shows what they changed and what they left alone.
Okay. The only way this could happen, not what you just said,
Yeah.
the only way we could meet Thursday's deadline is if she goes to work on this tomorrow and Wednesday.
Right.
I don't know when you're gonna get it back to look at. This is a more global, so,
As I understood it, that was Friday, the 12th.
well, you're having a meeting on Thursday
Yes.
to move it along. Are you gonna need to see it with the changes before you move it along?
Possible.
Because this is gonna make a difference in whether and when it gets moved.
We might have to do it Thursday. We might have to sit and go through it, if that's what you need to do. We might have to do it then. That's probably the soonest that we will have it.
So I just want to make sure we ask her, because it should be very easy in whatever software she's using to be able to highlight what's changed, and then also to present a clean version that doesn't have those highlights, because nobody wants to. So we should be able to get 2 documents.
All right, so that, yeah, and I wanna stay more with the big picture for a second if we could. Let's think about this realistically. I don't think that you're going to get this hours before your Thursday meeting.
I agree.
I don't think that's gonna happen. How are we going to move this along on Thursday if you don't get it hours before Thursday night?
It'll just have to be a working meeting.
Well, then are you gonna move it on Thursday? At the end
We
of
have
work?
I think we should try, and
We have to.
So you're gonna have to sit here and go through this stuff.
And it depends how easily she can give this. Very much relates. It depends how easily we can view what she has changed.
well, if she did a track changes or something like that.
If she did that, it'd be ideal.
I'm anticipating it's possible, so then my question was geared towards when you get those home track changes.
Yeah.
Is it your intention to work through them and understand them fully before you move this along to the planning board?
At least to eyeball them, yeah.
All right, then,
Yeah, I'm okay with that, sure. I mean,
so if,
most of the stuff that we've talked about has been, I think it's a pretty quick review.
all right, so I would suggest right now, Dan, that you email Molly and say, we are going to send you Turner's memos with a notation about what you're looking at. We're gonna send you changes from Saturday. We're gonna send you changes that we made tonight. We absolutely need those changes identifiable on the new document. Please, 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 please. Because we anticipate having a working session on Thursday to go through those changes and then move it along.
Yep.
Okay, so I think she needs to get that sooner rather than later, because I don't know when she's gonna start working on this
Yeah.
stuff.
And then ask her, you know,
Yeah,
what's possible.
yeah, and that's good, because if Fridays, she can't do it Friday, then we're in deep trouble.
Okay.
So I would suggest, because they had a seminar, when I knew we were gonna do this tonight, I said, can you be at this meeting? She said, maybe I can get there by 6. I know this is the next thing on her list, and so if she's working on it now, I would like her to be able to track those changes for
Sure.
you all. So
Yeah.
I think that email ought to go out.
Yep.
No.
I'll CC all of you on.
Not to steal Dan's thunder, I could send this all out to her tonight
That'd be great.
with that.
Yeah, but I think she needs to understand, I think she's already she could be working on this already.
Right, no, I'm just
So I
saying
wanna-
to save him
I
an
wanna
email.
get something to her ASAP, so she understands what you're expecting on the other end of this thing.
And she'll tell us if our assumptions are wildly off or whether she can meet them.
Well, I would say we've got to have something the changes are identifiable when we read the document.
She may say though that what you've presented is good enough because it's a marked up. Remember she talked about this. She said you could have stickies on it. You could have it. It doesn't have to
Which is
be
what we have
perfect
right
yet.
now.
Yeah, which is
So-
essentially what we have right now.
So let me ask you this. Are you comfortable moving it along to the planning board based on the stickies and the handwriting and my stuff as a compilation? Because when I talked to her, this sort of echoes what she said to me, is I anticipate that I can have everything finished by Friday. But when she was saying that, I think she thought that on Thursday, you would say, we are now making a motion to move along to the planning board, the CAF for the comprehensive plan amendment, to which the comprehensive plan amendment was attached, and the CAF for the zoning changes and subdivision code change, to which the attachment would be Dorothea's handwritten notes, Molly's noted changes on
What we did tonight, on your memo.
on 3, or whatever that one was, and Peggy's changes from Saturday and Dorothea's changes from now.
Yes, and I think the request is for us to have her get all of that into one document because we can't have the planning board reading the document and then going to Peggy's notes and then going. It should all be kind of in
Yeah,
one thing.
right.
I think that's the request.
I get it. My question to this board is whether because this is gonna change what she's gonna do over the next couple days.
Mm-hmm.
My request, or my question to the board is, will you be comfortable moving that compilation of stuff along to the planning board? And then she'll do the cleanup.
And then sent back to.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's fine, because we're not at a final stage, and we know there's gonna be more.
It's a matter of aesthetics.
Yeah,
All
right.
right, so what's gonna be
It
moved along?
depends how tidy it is. So
So what
yes, as
so
long as
I
everything's
keep
in one
interrupting, I'm
place.
sorry, Dan.
No, go ahead.
What I wanna make sure you understand what I'm talking about. What you're gonna move along to the trust, or to the planning board, code-wise, is a bunch of handwritten
Mm-hmm.
documents. That's what your motion would be based on.
Right,
When it goes to them, it will be cleaned up.
right.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
Because if you're comfortable with that, and you're not gonna do this, because we don't have the rest of the stuff, you can do that tonight.
I want to see what the product is that we're talking about physically handing to them.
That's a different issue. Then you're not, what you just said is then you're not comfortable by motion moving along
Until we see it.
to them that compilation of documents. I mean, that's the distinction I'm trying to get to.
I understand.
So the answer to the question I just asked will depend on what Molly's doing over the next couple of days, and what we're gonna do on Thursday.
So I think we should ask her, given that we're giving you X, Y, and Z, handwritten notes, blah, 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 notes from you, what will we receive back from you on Thursday so that we may pass it along? Will you just kind of assemble all this into one document? I think that's the question for Molly. Because she's not going to be able to make all the changes in the source document. There's going to be versions of stickies and all that stuff.
Okay,
Do I understand, I wanna understand this. We are eventually gonna get the cleaned up version, let's call it next Monday, whatever, when she has time to work on it. But what, in order to vote on it, you're saying we don't need to have the cleaned up version in order to vote to move it along. We can have this potpourri of different,
I didn't say that you could do that, I wondered if you were, I was trying to get to the bottom of whether or not you would be comfortable doing that.
with the
Because
content.
you can do it. That's why my point was you could do it tonight.
I think the key thing here is that we all recognize that no matter when Molly gets the cleanup document, we're gonna take another look at it, number one, to make sure that it's accurate, and number two, to make sure eventually whatever we get from the planning board, we review and incorporate that as well. So it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make, we know that Molly's making the changes, we know we're gonna have to review those changes as soon as she has a cleaned up document for us.
So the question is, that sharpens the question, because the question is, are you gonna wait until you have the cleaned up document to move it along to the planning board by motion?
There's two kinds of cleaned up documents. One of them is just assembled of all this stuff that we put together. And then the other one is a cleaned up version.
Right.
So I want to see the assembled version first and then vote to move that forward. Because I don't want to hand something off that's embarrassing.
All right, well, that's sort of my question, is we're not gonna hand off anything that isn't clean.
When is the planning board meeting again? Because the key thing is we wanna have Monday, is that, so I guess we need to find out, will they have that ready by then? So
It's
they
Molly's
have something-
intent to have it done by Monday.
But we wanted, by our schedule, it's Friday the 12th, we formally kick off all these processes. Even though they're not meeting till Monday, we want to, if we can do it on Friday, let's do it on Friday.
Well, I thought we were scheduled to do it Thursday.
We approve it on Thursday, the reviews start on Friday technically.
Okay,
Or they start at the moment of review, whatever.
right, so Molly cleans up stuff, we're gonna get a stack this big.
Let's call it assembles.
Yes, she assembles
Phase
the
one
doc-
is assemble.
It's all assembled. You will have a proposed CAF for each job. You'll have a proposed part one of seeker,
Mhm.
and the motions will be, and John and Molly will get this refined. The motions will be to move the CAF and the proposed comp plan amendment, CAF for that, to the planning board for LWC review. The same process for the CAF and the zoning code and subdivision code modification, planning board. Part one and all of those documents to involved and interested agencies with a request that you become lead agency and a referral to Monroe County Planning
Mhm.
of everything. That's the job for Thursday.
Okay.
And you're gonna do it based upon the compiled documents, if you are willing to work that way. And then Molly will finish it all off, the
By a
finished document,
certain date.
by Friday or Monday, and it goes to the planning board.
I think she's gonna need more time than that, but that's the question for her. Once you have the assembled document, how long do you think it will take you to turn around a refined document?
I think she thought by Friday.
I mean, we're asking her to do research and create new content for definitions.
That's a couple for her.
Well, we'll ask her.
Yeah, but I think that's a couple strokes of the computer for her, you know, to
Hope
say.
so.
Anyway, all right, so, you're gonna send her everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we're
I've got
gonna
a
ask,
handle on the note.
and we're gonna ask her to compile all of the docs for us to move it along on Thursday. And when can we get
Refined.
a client, a clean copy?
And the refined should have track changes or some method of seeing what's changed from the prior version.
Yeah.
And the cleaned up version is what I sent to all the interested parties.
And the
Monroe
planning
County,
board.
And the planning board, and Monroe County.
But no, the applications will happen with the assembled product because this is essentially ready to go. So we'll start.
Here's what I think. And Molly and I had a conversation about all of this stuff, and I said, can you get cleaned up stuff to us by Thursday? And she gasped a little bit.
Yeah.
She said, my plan was Friday.
Okay.
But I think she can get you the compilation for moving along purposes. So I see this going like, you're gonna do the motion authorizing everything I just said. Seeker, CAFs, county planning. And then Molly's gonna take that compilation and turn it into the clean, or it will have been turned into a clean document by Friday or Monday for Dorothea to package up and
Okay.
ship it out.
Assuming she says yes, I can meet that timeline. Then that's the plan.
That's how I think this is gonna roll out.
Okay.
Since you will be communicating with her regarding some of the terminology and some of the bullets.
I have one communication with her. Okay,
Do
go
you-
ahead.
Would you be willing to convey what you just laid out here to her, that is the expectation of what we're planning on happening?
I will email her, if you're all okay with this. I'll email her tonight with what we've talked about, with compilation, with a question about when can we get the clean product assembled.
Yeah, and I got that. I can write that up and copy everybody. I'm not sure we need to.
No, you don't
spell
need
it.
to, if you're done, just go ahead and do it.
I know exactly what to write. I'll CC everybody on it. If it's not right, then ask Jeff to
Yeah,
to
I'm not
summarize.
interested in
I know
doing
exactly
that.
what we need to say.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be calling her tomorrow with one, I'm gonna go through, when you make copies for me, I'm gonna go through this stuff with her. I'll walk her through everything so she understands what's going on.
Okay.
So-
The last, I'm sorry, go on, Bob.
Just so I have fewer documents saved, I could probably throw out everything we've worked on tonight, because we're gonna get a fresh copy sometime.
Well, of course, you're talking to Mr. Paranoid, I would never throw anything out till I get the next one.
Yeah, you're probably right. Good thought, your good thought. That's
Hey,
fine.
the other thing, this should be an easy one. The planning and zoning board asked us to be a little more timely with posting draft versions to our website as part of agendas because it's on an agenda to talk about, but the actual document isn't there for people to see. I think that's pretty reasonable. So the next time,
It has been.
they say it hasn't. They say these are not up on
Well,
there.
not on this one, but it's been up every single one. I'm putting the same drafts I have.
Okay.
It's on the main page.
Okay, then they might be mistaken. If you could point me to that, because I couldn't find it either. It's okay.
It's there. I mean, I might not have put with this code, but I know
So
the
the-
last
the
meeting it
June
had all
6th
the sections. June 6th is on there multiple times, multiple agendas.
Okay, then that's all I need to tell.
It's, I mean,
You-
I've been throwing every section up
Okay,
because
super.
I wasn't quite sure. Okay, so you guys are still on for Thursday. What am I putting on that agenda?
Review compiled changes to the draft code,
Initiation of seeker?
initiation of
Initiation of LWC for, comp plan amendment, zoning code, and subdivision code adoption. Referral to Monroe County Planning.
You're gonna have docs related to all this that I need to post?
I don't know where part one of seeker is. I know where the two draft caps are, they're on my desk. I will get them to you as soon as I can.
just because, as Dan pointed out, somebody's gonna question me for those docs when I put it up.
They should send us as PDFs and all that, so.
But I think they're gonna be looking for the complete.
What's that?
I took a sign, yeah, but I'm gonna speak for what we have now.
Don't worry.
Joanne will be here to take notes on Thursday. I have an appointment that I made a month ago.
5:30?
5:30.
And we will.
Do you want us to get you a mattress from your desk?
Sure.
What?
It'll be a
Also,
lot
making a
easier.
motion regarding our intent to be lead agents.
Yeah, that, I think that's covered under initiation and secret. No, you're not making a motion, you are sending out your request to be lead agency.
Remind me again, what's a calf?
It's a little cow, sorry. Coastal assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we actually have a calf as part of the local waterfront,
Redevelopment program.
yeah. It's in that document.
Yeah, got it.
It's not-
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Just checking. Okay, I think I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Are you sure you don't want to stay and talk code a little bit?
You might send me those definitions.
Dorothea?
right?
Can I walk out with those?
There's only two.
Yes.
I'm gonna.
I'm gonna make the copy
Frank,
right
did you
now.
drive?
I get this to her.
Yeah, I'll wait, you know,
Frank?
I just need
Did
a.
you drive?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. That was very helpful.
You're welcome.
Obviously, you've done a lot of work on it.
I did over the weekend, I really hit it hard.
I can tell.
I had to.
Did you have a party? What's that? Did you have a party for your birthday?
A little bit, yeah, we're just gonna.
Oh, happy birthday, Jeff.
Thank you very much.